Today I'm going to show you how to install the Performance Upgrade Kit for the RipCurrent S. This kit will allow you to use throttle up to 30 miles per hour. This kit is only compatible with the RipCurrent S released in 2022 with the 1000 watt motor. It is not compatible with the Step-Through version and also any of our older RipCurrent S models. Here's what's included in the kit: the upgraded controller, tail light, open-ended wrench with a 10mm and 8mm side, Phillips screwdriver, 4mm Allen wrench, 2.5mm Allen wrench, cable guides, C-clamps, and zip ties. Also needed would be some scissors. Tools you may also need are needle nose pliers to help remove the rubber channel cover, and isopropyl alcohol to help you reinstall the rubber channel cover. We're going to start off by removing the battery, turning it off, hold it for a few seconds. And then also hold the LCD power button for about 5 seconds to get rid of any remaining charge. Now we're going to locate the motor cable, and we're going to cut the zip ties to the motor cable off. Be careful when you're cutting the zip ties not to cut into any of the cabling, especially you have your brake cable right here also. And then we're going to unscrew the connection here to the motor cable. On the opposite side here on the back, now you're going to locate your torque sensor connection right here. So first we're going to cut the zip ties. So again, carefully cut the zip ties, being careful not to cut into any of the cabling. And then with the torque sensor connection here, grab with both hands on the actual connection itself. Don't grab here on the wires, and pull it apart. Okay, next we're going to be removing this rubber channel here on the down tube. And this is covering your cables here. You can pull it by hand here, and if you have a hard time pulling it by hand, you can actually use some pliers or needle nose pliers. Grab it. Just start pulling. And once you get enough of it out, just start pulling it down. It can be a little tough, so might have to use a little bit of force, but it should just slide down. There you go. Now we have our cables. We can pull the two cables out. These are the two cables we just disconnected, and pull them out of the way there. Now you're going to take your 4mm Allen wrench, and you're going to locate the two bolts on the heat sink right here, and we're going to remove those bolts. These bolts are the ones securing the controller to the frame here. All right, after that, just put your bolt back in there, set this aside. We'll be installing that later. Now you're going to take your Phillips head screwdriver, and you're going to locate the screw right here on this cover. Remove the screw, and then remove this cover on this upper dock here. All right, on the upper dock here, gonna bring in your 2.5mm Allen wrench, and these two bolts right here, we're gonna remove these. So Okay, now while we're removing this dock, you find this XT60 connection. You're gonna disconnect that from the controller. All right, find your headlight connection, disconnect that, and also your main wire harness connection, disconnect that. Locate the controller in here, and carefully start pulling it out. And start feeding the wires through. Get all the wires out. And there, your controller is removed. You can set it aside if you're ever going to use it again. Now with your upgraded controller, you want to cut any zip ties that are on it when it was shipped. Be careful. Okay, you get these unraveled and we'll be ready to install now the new upgraded controller. All right, we're gonna put in the new controller now. First, we're gonna make sure that we have this lined up properly. The sides with the threaded, where you're gonna put the bolts into, you wanna make sure that that's on this side right here, not the other way around. And then what we're gonna do is start by getting these long cables and starting to thread them through here. So there's an opening right here, so you're going to start by getting the cables through there. Be careful not to crimp them or do anything with them that would cut them. So take your long cables, and get them through this opening right here. Then kind of start pulling them. Also, you're going to have one that's marked auxiliary out. We're not using that. That's for just at later use. If you want to put something like an accessory or something on there. Now that we got most of the long cables in, we're going to put in the shorter cables through. Pull those through. Also, the one for your headlight here. Make sure that's coming through the opening also. I want to lose that later, so you want to get that through the opening. Make sure now that your power cable here, the cable that's going to hook up to the XT60, it's going to hook to your upper dock, kind of bend backwards like this. And we're going to push this part way into here. And then we still want to have this out, because what we're going to do now, we're going to actually hook up, take your upper dock here and connect it right here to connect these two XT60 connections, and then take a zip tie and secure the connection so this does not accidentally unhook at any point in time. We do that, cut the excess off. Now you can kind of tuck it under here, and now we're going to push the controller through. Pull any cables that you need to out of the way. as you're pushing up. Make sure they're out of the way here. And now you can see you got your two threaded holes in here. And these should be showing about like right here. All right, now we're gonna install the heat sink. Make sure the juiced is lined up, not upside down, like this way. Make sure you can see your holes here. That there. Take your 4mm Allen wrench and one of your bolts here. Might take a little bit of finagling, but just get it, make sure that they're lined up right. Start tightening it down. Get your other one. Now we're going to install this upper dock. Make sure these cables are kind of out of the way. Like that. You're going to take one of the upper dock bolts and your 2.5 Allen key, and you're going to insert it in here. There. Now we're going to do the lower one here. Same thing, take the bolt, put it right through here, the hole there. Sometimes you might have to kind of press down on this. Make sure you kind of line it up good. Tighten it down. You want it snug, you don't want to over tighten it. We don't want to end up stripping it. So just make sure it's snug. Should be all good to go. Now your upper dock is installed. Now we're going to put the plate on. Click that in. You're going to take this screw and your Phillips head screwdriver. Put it right in here. Thread that in. Tighten it down. Make sure it's secure. Now your upper dock's all secured. Ready to go on to the next step. All right, now we're going to install the new tail light. So first we're going to have to take off the old tail light. We're going to use the open-ended wrench, the 8mm side. Put it right here onto the nuts on here. Loosen the nut up. Should have two of them. Right. And just save your tail light. If you want to ever reinstall it later, set it aside. Now you're going to take your new upgraded tail light. You're going to remove the nuts here. Remove the nuts and the washers. That. I'm going to take it and put it onto here, onto the rack, and take your nuts and lock washers, thread them on there. Take your wrench on the 8mm side, the nuts down. Make sure it's pretty secured. Put this over to one side. All right, we're going to prepare the taillight cable here to route it. So it's going to go underneath here and then go up your seat tube. You have these cable guides right here. You can stick these on. We're going to put it in 3 different places. Just kind of line them up, stick them on there really good. Here. Down. Make sure they're on there really well. And then you're going to find your cable that is marked. It's going to have the yellow tip and it's going to be marked tail light, tail brake light. And you're going to take that, kind of route it down underneath here, and then I'm gonna bring it up. Make sure I get the right one here. Bring it up through here. And now you do have the option to use these little C-clips here, these little clamps. You can clamp that onto here, but I think I would prefer to just use a zip tie it onto the channel, the cable guide. There. Make sure that's in the guide. Pretty snug, not too much so you don't want to smash the cable, but make sure you have all your cable through. So, still tight, but still enough that you can get any slack through. They're all tight. And make sure you have your cable all the way through. And we're going to route it underneath here. All right, so now we're going to hook these up. So just have this coming out of right here by the seat tube, come up over here. Carefully line up, there's little arrows, or you can see the little notches. Line those up, snap it in, and now what we're gonna do is zip tie this to the rack along the edge here. Make a few zip ties. Just put them on tight enough, not too tight, so you can still pull any slack if you need to. You can even put one here if you'd like. Onto this stage. So you're sure you have it routed the way you want, tighten them up a little more. Take your scissors, cut off all the excess. Okay, now we're gonna hook up the rest of our cables next. Make sure, kind of push up all your cables here into the channel. Make sure they're all up in there. And then we're gonna do that. Make sure you got your motor cable right here. So line that up. Okay, so now we're gonna hook up the motor cable. Kind of line up these pieces right here onto here. Push it together, screw it in. Okay, now what we're gonna do is we're gonna take our zip ties and we're gonna zip tie this all back together. So right here onto the guides. Just zip tie them kind of snug, but not just enough. You can still move them if you need to. Get this. All right, once you know you have everything situated properly, you can tighten them down a little more. Again, but not too tight. We never want to be smashing the cables or anything like that. And you get your scissors, cut off all the excess. And then we'll go on to the next side and do the torque sensor. All right, now we're gonna find the last cable here for the back. It should say torque sensor on it. We're gonna line up the arrows, push this together. And now also you have your derailleur cable here too. So you want to make sure that these are both together, and we're going to zip tie these onto the cable guide. Again, kind of snug, but still loose enough to move them around. Don't forget there's one more way back in here, so you can kind of get it reach in between the chain ring here and get that one situated. Make sure you have plenty of slack, that nothing's too tight, it all looks good. Tighten them down a little more. Cut off the excess. Now these are all hooked up and ready to go. And now coming out of this, out of the right here, now we're going to hook up first the headlight, red tip. Make sure you line these up. Together. Now you're going to hook up your main wire harness. Make sure that's tight. There. All right, now we're ready to put in the rubber channel cover. This can be a little bit of a pain to put in. One recommendation, what we do here is we use some alcohol here, just regular isopropyl alcohol. You can even use a little soapy water. You wet it down with the alcohol right here into this channel, and this will help it slide in a little easier. And then the alcohol will eventually evaporate, so it shouldn't leave any residue or anything onto the bike. All right. So take your channel, your rubber channel cover, slide it in there. Just slide it up through the channel. You got to push down on any of the cables, push down the cables too, make sure they're out of the way. slide it right in. All right, before we put the battery on and test this, just make sure that all your cables are secure and nothing is in the way of the wheel back here. So there's no cables getting in the way of the wheel. All your, basically, all your zip ties have been cut. Double check on both sides. Check that, make sure all your connections are in. And once you've done that and you're secure, everything's secure and you're confident that that's good to go, we're gonna take your battery, turn the battery on. Place it into the dock. Then you can turn on the LCD, so press that right here, press your power button for a few seconds. Make sure that you're not getting any error codes or anything on the LCD. If you like, you could very carefully tilt it onto the kickstand here. Check to make sure the motor's working. Make sure your brake light on the back should be working too now that you have the new light on there. When you depress the brakes, that should turn on. And then when you put the headlight on, so when you press the plus button right up here, for a couple of seconds, your headlight and your tail light should light up. And then if you press it again, it should turn it off. But again, make sure you don't get any error codes or anything like that. If you do, you might have a connection loose or something like that. So then go back, double check all your connections. And you're ready to go. All right, in order to use the throttle above 20 miles per hour, you're gonna have to make sure that you have race mode. This bike right now does not have race mode unlocked. So what you're gonna do is you're gonna press the plus and the minus button at the same time for a few seconds. You're gonna go down. We have NDW in your settings. You're gonna press your power button. And we're gonna make sure to go to NDW5 and press the power button again. Just keep on pressing it. There you go. Now you have race mode. And in race mode, you will be able to go over 20 miles per hour with the throttle. In the other modes, you'll still be limited to 20, but to realize the full potential of now this new controller, you gotta put it in race mode, and you should be able to do over 20 on throttle. This accessory will increase the bike's top speed in throttle. So make sure you use this where it's legal. Just remember when you're in race mode that your range will be significantly lower, and just keep that in mind when you're riding. If you have any questions, leave a comment below, and thanks for watching.